Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and with me is my wonderful co-host, Courtney Bolin.
Hey, everybody.
We are back for another week of
Yeah.
news. And boy, do we have a wild ride this week. Let me tell you. Oh boy. We have got some stuff here today. So yeah. Aside from the pleasantry, I mean, we're reporting from the frozen north, with under a recent 5 inches of snow.
I'd say a good 5, maybe
Yeah,
5.5, 6 inches. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I don't know. I didn't clean much off of my car, but it was between
yes,
work and stuff.
yes. Courtney's also having some trouble with her car that may or may not should be happening. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We won't
Yeah.
get into that because we'll spend a whole episode ranting about
Yeah. Just
local
ranting
car
about my
shops.
car.
So, all right, let's get right into our quickfire news.
Yes.
All right, so first up, we got a trailer for Godzilla vs. Kong. This film was teased like 6 years ago.
I was going to say, I thought that it's funny because I saw that and I was like, didn't this come out already?
It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like we've had so many Godzilla films that have come out that it's like, didn't we already do this? So we got a trailer for the upcoming Legendary and Warner Brothers film. It's going to release March 26th. And of course, with Warner Brothers release strategy, it's going to be released to theaters and HBO Max. And to clarify, if you have HBO Max, you will just get it, albeit probably for a limited time. But no additional
Similar
cost.
with how Wonder Woman worked.
Yes, exactly the same. Warner Brothers, that's their
Yep.
strategy.
I mean, it's not terrible. So, Animal Crossing, there is a new Festivale event added in a free update that is coming out tomorrow, January 28th. And a Mario event has been teased for March.
Yeah, so that'll likely be on March 10th because that's like Mario Day.
Mario Day, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so Animal Crossing teased it with like a mushroom and a star on there, like coming in March. But yeah,
Ah,
so this is basically Carnival, and they have like a peacock character. I think
that's what I
his name is
figured.
Pave. And a very, very flamboyant peacock kind of character. You'll get all sorts of Carnival costume type stuff and everything.
Sounds cute. Have
Yeah.
fun with that.
Coming to theaters and premiere access on Disney Plus on March 5th is Raya and the Last Dragon. So this is Disney's newest animated feature film, sort of set in their version of like a Southeast Asia type locale. Kind of a little bit of like an Avatar vibe to it. You've got like 4 kingdoms, they're all warring.
Oh, that
Raya's
Avatar. Okay, good Avatar.
Raya's searching for the last dragon to like unite the kingdoms and like bring peace to the land. This is all in the trailer. This is the basic premise of the film. So not spoilers. But yeah, the premiere access.
That's like
That's
Mulan,
a thing.
which makes me think it's gonna be another $35
Maybe.
or something. Like, wasn't it like 30 or 35 for
I believe
Mulan?
it was $35.
Yeah,
So it
that's
was
what I
about the
thought, and I'm
price for
like,
like 2 people to go to the movie theater, but
mhm.
you wouldn't be at the movie theater.
Yeah,
That's the
and
part that I've got issues
yeah.
with that. We're going to talk about that later and these different
Yes.
film release strategies.
Yes. Something else we are going to be talking about is Dungeons and Dragons released some new Unearthed Arcana with Gothic lineages. Um, so I'm excited to talk some more about those.
Yeah. So these are basically using the mechanical term quote unquote races. But also of note, there's a sidebar in that Unearthed Arcana that we're going to talk about because that has some implications for design in D&D going forward. All right, last up, this is the wildest news of the week. All it happened today, basically.
Yeah.
So the subreddit Wall Street Bets counters short selling of GameStop stock by basically a particular hedge fund firm. I didn't have the foresight to write down the name. I think it's
But
Melvin something.
who knows? But all those
Um,
terrible
so
hedge fund people.
countering it and causing the stock price to surge uncontrollably. We're going to talk about this in our deep dive as well, because to kind of explain what all that means and
Because
why
Courtney was
it's
running errands today
why it's
instead of paying
hilarious
attention to what was going on.
and what that kind of means for GameStop a little bit. Um, so yeah, but that's currently happening. So it's basically a subreddit took on a hedge fund firm in sort of a Wall Street bidding war ish kind of a thing. It's a little more complicated and interesting than that. But that said, that kind of wraps up our quickfire news. So let's get into our deep dive. All right. Why don't we start with the GameStop, since that's the spiciest
Yes.
news on this this
Yeah,
deep
so
dive
this
taco.
like just so correct me if I'm wrong. Like this has literally happened all just today.
I
Like maybe late
want to
last
say
night and
yes.
early today. I'm like,
I
because
first
I've been
started
out
seeing
running
it like
errands all day.
I saw it like first thing this morning, so I think it's been happening like over the past 24 hours.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what happened. So first off, from my very rudimentary understanding of it, I will say this with a caveat um, of that. So short selling, what this is a practice in which you can sign a contract with someone that owns stock. Okay, so you are not
Hmm.
a stockholder. You
Okay.
sign a contract with a stockholder to
Okay.
borrow their stock, right? So they technically sell their stock to you,
Yep.
and as part of the contract is that so you get that money. Um, yeah, like you get the money, um, and then what you do is you promise at you have like a deadline with which to give the stock back, uh, and any money that you make from selling it then. Right. I think I'm
So
hope
you're.
I'm explaining this correctly.
Hmm.
What they do is they basically set a timeline, and what they do is using that timeline, they either wait or kind of manipulate things a little bit to have the stock tank when they give it back, so that they give it back at a lower price than when they acquired it for, so that they make a profit on the difference of money.
Right, because they only have to sell it or give it back at the price that it is at currently.
Yeah.
So, okay, because I'm like, it's like pawning. Only if it decreases in value, you only get the decreased value back.
Yeah. It's a little bit like that. Yeah.
That's
So
that's that's
so that it's scummy. It
yes.
happens, and it happens all across the industry, all across the
And
investment
it's
industry. Now, there is a
yeah,
subreddit
it's
called Wall
scummy.
Street Bets that basically takes a look at it looks at the stock market as just gambling and uses strategies in
That's what
like
it is.
casino gambling for the stock market and treats it, kind of like they use investment strategies and everything, but like it's Reddit.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I am
they
not a Reddit user.
they were looking at trends in the market, and they saw this come up with GameStop, and they identified it, and they thought, that looks a little weird. This kind of looks like it's being um it's being, sold short. I don't know what the past of short selling, uh
Yeah.
short sold, I guess. Um
Yeah.
and they said, "You know what? We're tired of hedge funds doing this. We're going to screw them over." So they do
So can
this.
we
In
do
order to do
this?
this, what they
Can
do
we?
is they just start buying all that stock. And by buying it uncontrollably is they drove the price up, okay?
Yeah.
So
So
in the
now the
time
hedge fund
period,
people would have to pay more to
correct.
give
So
it
rather
back,
than
and they have to do it because they're
they're
contractually
contractually obligated to
obligated to
pay
do it.
the new price at whatever it is on that date. So their hope was that they were going to tank the stock and make a bunch of money on it. And also make GameStop look weak in the prospects because that's how American people view stock prices as health of a company type thing, yada yada yada, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
instead, this group of redditors went, "Yeah, no, we hate hedge funds. Let's have some fun," and they drove it up astronomically. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
take a look at the
saw
5 day
I
average, and it goes like this. It's like me. So, or I guess for viewers,
kind
me
of
me me
goes
me me
kind of goes a
me.
little
It goes a little
flatline-ish,
flat, and then all
like
of a sudden it goes boom. Now the hedge fund has to buy it back at that higher price. Um, they tanked the hedge fund.
so these kinds of contracts are like short term.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm
I
like,
don't
that's the only
necessarily
thing
know
I
if
can
they
think of is
are.
like because of like a change this drastic in a single day. I mean, granted, yes, it is the stock market and ups and downs and blah blah blah, but this type of increase
Yeah.
is something that is I'm just so happy with the people of the internet.
Now, also,
Like,
um, here's the other thing. So, like, granted, this doesn't mean that you should go out and buy GameStop right now if your intent is to like, add money to your retirement account for your portfolio or whatever. No, because you will lose money. Like that's the
now you
takeaway here is
will.
like, do not do that. However, these people are like, yeah, our goal was to kind of mess with this hedge fund and to take them out because we hate hedge funds and, stockbroker, rich stockbroker type people. So, mission accomplished. I'm just going to keep my GameStop stock.
Thank you. Thank you,
Which, like,
humans of
also when you think about it that
Reddit.
way, like, like if you hold on to that stock, like that's kind of the purpose, right? Like that's what investment is supposed to be. Is supposed to be like giving businesses money so that they can do things.
Yeah.
And now it's become like, oh well, now we trade these imaginary blocks of goods, quote unquote, for funds, and then it
It's
just becomes
practically
like
Bitcoin.
you are just moving imaginary money all over the place, and in the same
They're
respect, even though it's imaginary money, controlling the fate of companies while doing so. Um,
Yeah, so when you say that they tanked this hedge fund, does this basically mean that like it's done with,
um,
like bankrupting a company or something?
I am so I want to say yes. Let me just verify that. I believe that hedge fund like had to file for let's see.
Had to file for bankruptcy.
Oh, there we go.
You
Melvin
know,
Capital. Uh
it just doesn't
oh geez. So
all
700% rally is what it
Mhm.
was.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Um
Mm, like I've missed this entire story all day because like today's my day off and I have just had appointment after
oh no, we lost Courtney. Oh geez, I can't type.
course. Of course. There we go. Now I'm back. But I've been
So
missing
it closed
everything
out of
today.
its
Bit.
short position in GameStop. Um So this is from CNBC. Could not confirm the amount of losses the firm took on the short position. Um, oh, basically, so two other firms have infused close to $3 billion into the hedge fund to shore up its finances. Um, okay, so the hedge fund's manager, that speculation about a bankruptcy filing is false.
It's still just it reminds me of the phrase, "It's only money." Like, to them, the amounts that these are with the stock market in general is it's just moving numbers around, and it goes far too fast for me, and I don't know or understand anything beyond the basics of the stock market. But it's just numbers at this point for so many people. But I've
Okay, so
seen
it
a few
wasn't
of my friends.
today, but it was this week.
Yeah.
um,
But, like, I've been seeing posts from different friends who are like, they bought in right when they saw the subreddit, um, and bought in and have made a good amount of money. I mean, for a non-millionaire, let's say. Um, but it's just been insane kind of watching their posts about, like, how much this has increased. It's kinda like watching people who are investing in Bitcoin, because like, that's been rapidly
well, so
fluctuating.
Bitcoin's a
It's
little bit of a
different, it's
different
very
story
different. Yeah.
because the whole idea of Bitcoin is that there is a scarcity to it.
Yeah.
Because it takes so much processing power and time in order to get more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Um, which is why all the costs of GPUs have gone sky high. Uh,
Yeah, because people were mining Bitcoin.
yeah, they were buying
So,
graphics cards to set up like Bitcoin mining machines instead of
yeah.
like doing, actual things with graphics cards. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's what's happening with that. Uh,
That's just lovely.
yeah. So, all right. So we covered GameStop.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about the Unearthed Arcana, or do we want to talk about movie release strategies?
I think we should talk movie release strategies. Have these 2,
Okay.
I guess I say, bigger
I
chunks,
mean, these are probably the two
split up a
biggest
little.
ones. So
Yeah.
these are two different strategies designed to, uh, like number one, allow these bigger studios to get stuff onto streaming platforms, so that people can see it right away, because they
Yeah.
know that people are likely not going to theaters. While at the same time, simultaneously releasing it to theaters to fulfill their contracts with the movie theaters themselves, so that way they're not ostracizing the theaters and like showing them the cold shoulder. Like I want to say Universal or Sony might have done to like AMC. It was
Yeah.
somebody had mentioned that like, oh, maybe we'll just start releasing directly to streaming. It might have been like Universal and AMC. Like, and that
Yeah.
started like butting heads between the two. Um, because obviously movie theaters don't want to hear that, right? Like they still
Yeah.
need to put people in seats. Um,
Yeah.
that said, so Warner Brothers has confirmed like they're doing a dual release strategy, with HBO Max specifically, and they're keeping their films on there for a limited time and then pulling them with what I speculate to be when it leaves theaters. And we can probably expect like movies to have a shorter run in the theaters during the pandemic still. Just
Yeah, and
because
so I
like they're
think
probably not
sim
making any money.
yeah, similar to how I figured with Wonder Woman, was it 1984 or whatever,
Yeah.
um, and, like, with that, it's the similar of like if people are in an area where they want to see or they're in a mindset where they want to see this movie. They are, like you and I, like we've had movies that we'll buy tickets for opening night. You know, we well pre-COVID. Like if they want to see it, they're gonna be on that platform, or if they don't have access to that platform for one reason or another, they're going to go see it in theaters because many theaters have been able to open up with different safety restrictions and ABC XYZ that they have to follow. And
Mhm.
so I think I'm not opposed to this strategy. Um
Yeah, I think
Because
this
they're
is
already
going to
on
be a
because they're
strategy.
on paid platforms.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an
So
interesting strategy moving forward.
mhm,
Is that you are still well, and I think what'll be interesting is when we are post COVID. Um, I don't think the strategy goes away unless we start
mhm.
to see crowds just not going to movie theaters in lieu of staying home and watching it. Um, and if it's enough of an impact that theaters start pushing back.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
That
and
said,
that's why I
I don't see
yeah,
this working for Disney. Uh,
that's my whole thing, yeah, with the whole Premier Access thing,
yeah.
like, I'm already pa I understand that, like, we could have a friends movie night and, like, all maybe post-COVID, all go over to one friend's house and watch the movie together. Like, I get that that's why they're setting that premium access price point, but at the same time, like, they're not doing that dual release, which I would actually understand if it was like limited time only, 2 weeks or something.
Well, I mean, they are doing a dual release. Like, it's also coming to theaters.
Oh, Disney is also doing.
Yeah, it's coming to theaters and Premiere Access.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my mind just blanked for a
Yeah.
minute.
The difference
Um,
is that with that Premier Access price, that's going directly to Disney instead of going to a theater.
yeah, and with our theaters here, we only have the local one open. And I would
Yeah,
rather put money to my local movie theater
right?
than more money to Disney that I'm already
Well, it's
paying
also if I'm going to
for.
spend $35 to watch something, I'm going to watch it on a giant movie screen.
I'm gonna have popcorn for dinner.
I don't want to watch it on my 35-inch TV at home or 40-inch TV or whatever we have, 40-inch TV. We don't
Yeah,
have
I don't
a
wanna
quote
watch it on
unquote
my laptop.
we don't have a quote unquote big screen TV at home, you know?
Yeah,
Um
I'm not gonna wanna watch it on my laptop. No, Courtney is having popcorn for dinner with some candy straws and a lemonade,
yeah.
and I'm
Now,
gonna watch it on a huge screen so that I can make sure that I can hear everything and I don't have to have subtitles.
yeah. Here's the other
That's
consideration. Smaller film companies, they don't have this option. They have to choose. They don't get to choose between theaters and streaming services.
yeah.
Typically, they have to really say like if they want to push hard to get theaters, like chances are they're not going to be able to get into a streaming service. And so this has actually caused a lot of consternation among smaller film studios. Um,
Yeah, I mean, because it's expensive to put a movie out in the theaters.
oh yeah, yeah,
Like,
it's
it
really
is
expensive.
super, super expensive to do that, and I'm not sure about the price to put something on, like, say, Netflix or Hulu or, Amazon
Um,
Prime.
so in the
I'm
case of
like
that,
I'm, like, looking down at my different streaming services.
I think in that case it's the service pays you because that's what the licensing contracts are about. But
But
they
it's
also
getting
have to
them
warrant
to
it,
yeah.
right? So you know, like I don't know. Like let's put it this way. Uh, for example, I don't see any streaming services rushing to get Monster Hunter. which might have already left theaters at this point. Who knows? Um, but
I don't
like
know.
that also, like that
I
went
drove
to
by the theater twice
theaters.
today.
That went to theaters. I still don't understand why or how. Uh, but it's also what's interesting is like you would think that like straight to streaming would be the new like straight to DVD, and it's not.
Yeah, like I think that that's the thing that's kind of getting me is there are so many that have been like like Aladdin 3 Prince of Thieves.
Yeah,
Like that was a straight to DVD.
or
Or a
straight or
straight to move
sorry,
to
or straight to
VHS at that point.
VHS for
Yes. I'm like
likely most of the people in our audience.
but that was a straight to at home viewing. That
Yeah,
was never intended to be put on
yeah, it's
big
basically you do
screens.
a cheap production. You send
Yeah.
it out to straight to home release, and you basically make a bunch of money on families picking it up for kids, which is
Yeah.
typically the strategy. Nowadays, like I mean, Universal seemed to bank real hard on it with I think it was Universal with Trolls 2.
Oh man,
Um
Trolls 2. That
yes,
was
Trolls 2, yeah. I mean, that was
just
the infamous example where Universal said, "Hey, we made plenty of money on this without releasing in theaters. Maybe we just won't do this at all." And that's when AMC shot back and said, "Well, maybe you won't be welcome."
but
They have since like denied, any sort of like
yeah.
hostilities or whatever, but
But at, I'm very very torn because I actually would understand it cuz like I'm going to use HBO as an example for a lot of this.
yeah,
So I have a paid Hulu account with ads still. So the basic Hulu account that I can get so that I can stream it on like my phone or my tablet or whatever on my TV on my smart TV, which I'm actually using a little bit more of now. Um things like that. So like I have the basic paid subscription. If I wanted to add something like HBO
yeah,
to my Hulu account, I can't just add that add-on. I have to pay the $60 a month for live TV and then the price for the HBO add-on, which I mean, the money all goes to Disney anyway. um,
well, in this case, so we have cable, right? We
yeah,
actually we actually pay for cable on top of all the
yeah.
streaming services because we're absurd. Um, Although we did the budgeting and we were like, well, somehow we actually don't really save any money if we were to cut cable. Like, I don't understand like how that happens. But
It's
anyway,
because
that's
every single place has gotten their own paid
well, no, but what I mean is like
streaming.
if we were like, oh, if we were to just use streaming services and to
Mhm.
cut cable and keep internet, and it turns out we might save like $70 a month, which for a lot of people that's huge.
That is
We are,
that's my internet bill.
I will say, we are fortunate enough and we are in a good enough place. I understand, my wife and I have a lot of privilege where we live.
As I said,
In
that's
other
my
places,
internet
we wouldn't
bill
be making
is
a lot of
70
money with
bucks.
what we make. But that's enough where we're like, is it worth the hassle to then, jump through hoops to do this, that, and the other thing? And it's like,
Yeah.
because we get HBO Max as part of our cable subscription.
Yeah.
So now, in our case, what this means is Warner Brothers is
I
basically
go over to
releasing those
your
movies.
house to watch stuff on
Yeah.
HBO Max is what
Um,
that equals.
Warner Brothers is it's as if they were just releasing these to HBO to then watch on TV.
Mhm.
And that like if you had told somebody that even 10 years ago, they would have said never happen.
Yeah.
Well, Netflix was pretty big, was like starting to get
20
really big around then. And I think that's what everybody was predicting.
2011 was 2011 they were starting to stream because I know I was my family I'm pretty sure was still let's see, I was a sophomore and yeah, we were still getting Netflix DVDs.
Yeah,
Um, at
yeah.
that point.
But it was I remember conversations happen of like, oh well, the whole death of movie theaters thing. Um, but it's if you really think about it, like, if you had told somebody not that it would be released to a streaming service, but that
Mhm.
it would essentially be released to cable same day, and I
Mhm.
use that term loosely as,
Yeah.
because we all know like HBO isn't technically cable, it's like a paid add-on service, which is how they can show what
Yeah.
they can show. Uh
Yes. And Showtime can as well.
yeah.
Thank you.
Um but that if you were able, like, if so let's say that you had a subscription to one of those, that you were able to watch it on TV the same day that it came out in theaters, ludicrous. Movie theaters would be
Oh yeah.
losing their minds.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um
No, if this happened 10 years ago, this it
yeah.
wouldn't even have
Well, but it's
been
also, these are somewhat unusual and some might say desperate times. And
these
basically, Disney and Warner Brothers want that sweet, sweet money.
I think that what has come from the pandemic is a lot of different, I want to call it different accessibility options because I know, like, as I just said, like, I enjoy going to the movie theaters
Yeah,
because the volume is loud enough in the theaters that I don't need subtitles. I am a person that watches everything besides like select YouTube videos and streaming. Like I don't watch Critical Role and I don't watch you when I'm like when you're doing a game stream with subtitles. But other than that, I watch every single thing in my life with subtitles. And that's why I really enjoy going to the movies is because I don't have to have subtitles, but even then, having that come directly into my home and I can have subtitles
yeah,
is like that is gods, that is mind-blowing to me
yeah.
right now
Now,
about just that tiny aspect. Also, I'm not cold
yeah,
in the theater.
yeah.
I'm not like yeah, our local theater has heated seats and you can lay back and
Now,
stuff, but
what I'm curious
all of
about
these things.
is, so I think as far as these strategies, I think Warner Brothers has the best strategy. I think
Yes.
it's the one that's going to work out best for them. I'm curious to
Yep.
see how many movies Disney puts out this premiere access for. Um, because I can't imagine that they are, like, I don't know if it's just a mitigation factor and they're like, you know what, we don't care if it, like, from a business perspective, it, isn't a huge success. This is just to mitigate losses. Um,
Yeah.
but to see, like, if it's an experiment and how many movies are in the experiment before they decide yes or no.
Yeah.
Um, I would
And
have thought with
n
Mulan and how badly that did, they would have said no. But I also don't know if they're just looking at Mulan also tanked in China.
I was gonna say that's the other thing that I really it's very, very difficult with Mulan because there are so many
And there was a lot of
socio-political there was a
problems.
yeah, there was a lot of political backlash from that. There was a lot of like, yeah, it tanked in China. Let's like just call it that. Um, but there was also a lot more I guess controversy. I know like the main actress who played Mulan was with the Hong Kong stuff and like there's all of these other things that are just it's
Well,
so
which, to clarify,
it was such a hot
anti Hong
button.
Kong.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean
But
that's
it was
just
such a
so
hot
that we're
button.
clear with our audience.
Yes, sorry. Um but yeah, it was such a hot button topic surrounding the movie, not even including the movie itself.
Yeah, which apparently was, mediocre. Like, it was all
Mhm.
right, but it was a case of people just like the original better.
I'm sorry. but dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow. Like, how can you not? I, I,
Well,
I mean,
apparently Eddie Murphy was a bit controversial, and Mushu was a bit controversial in the original version. Like among not among Western audiences, but it was a very like
yes,
westernized thing.
but I
Um,
also think that when Mulan the animated was released, we were living in a completely different world than we are living in now.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that that, that's also has to be taken into consideration. So I'm not sure how this new release is going to go, but I do hope that
I
it's
think it's
not
also
as it's not as
with
distracted.
well, I think with a new property, it'll be more
Mhm.
interesting to see as opposed to a remake,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um,
Because we know how Courtney feels about the live action remakes already.
oh boy.
I'm
Um,
not going there tonight. I'm not
but
going there.
this is a new property, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have like a storied history in Disney lore kind of a
Yeah.
thing. So I wonder if people, especially since Mulan also, it was like a couple of months after it came off of Premiere Access that it was just available. I want to
Yeah.
say maybe it was longer than a couple of months, but like
I don't know. I
I
still
feel like
haven't
most people are
watched
gonna be like,
it.
I'll just wait.
Yeah. But I think that there's always been the people that when something is in theaters, again, your production companies are not talking when they're trying to figure out who's going to be doing, like, who's going to be seeing these, who's going to be paying for the premiere access, who's going to be going to the theaters for these. They don't they're not worried about the people that have always been like, "Oh, I'll just wait." They're more focused on the people that are, "Mommy, daddy, I need to see this now." With
Well,
kiddos screaming
I think to a certain
or
degree that
having
does factor in
people
though,
that really want to see it.
because how that factors in is when they set pricing for these things.
Yes, and
And
I
then
think that
again,
that might
to
also
clarify,
be the
this is
reason
just
why it's
Disney.
$35 for the premiere access.
This is just Disney. When they set that price, because I will clarify, we also don't know what the price will be for Premiere Access for Raya. I
Yeah.
mean, if it's cheaper, then like if it's $20, I still think
If
that's
it's 20
pretty.
bucks, absolutely.
I still think that might be a little pricey. I
Oh,
think
no, see, that's the
once you get
thing.
into the
For me,
actual
20 is
price of a
good.
movie ticket for one person, I think then it becomes a much better deal for the consumer. Well, obviously because the price is cheaper, but like for the number of people that like will likely be watching it alone, now suddenly it becomes I'm not paying, the price of like 2 to 3 people to watch it myself.
Yeah, but I think that that's also a part of why they've been setting the price that they are, because as we talked before, it's the cost of a family, say the average family of, 2 kids and a 2 parental figures.
Yeah.
Like, you add all of those tickets together. I mean, I know going to the movies as a kid for me was, my mom, my dad, and I, including popcorn and soda and all of that.
Yeah. Well,
That was like $75 for the 3 of us.
yeah.
I mean, again, you can cook whatever you want at home and stuff like that, but it was still like, I mean, some movies, the tickets even nowadays are like $15 for an IMAX ticket, you
It's
know,
more than that, Courtney.
depending on where you go.
Well, the ones around here, we pay more than
No, the
that.
ones around here are definitely more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. Let's wrap up this discussion because we still got the Unearthed Arcana that I want to get through before we do quest log.
Ooh,
So,
yeah.
all right. So, Unearthed Arcana, Wizards released a new one this week, Gothic Lineages. So, what this is what's interesting is using the term lineages is new. So
Mhm.
mechanically, they talk about how um, the use of the term race is a purely mechanical one in terms of gameplay. It doesn't actually factor in such manner in story in the game world. Um, which okay, whatever. But the fact that they're using the term lineages for, I guess like these are character options for when you turn into something permanently, right?
Mhm.
So the ones presented in here are the Dampier, right? So traditionally they're kind of like weird half vampire, not quite vampire type characters. The Hexblood, which is sort of you have been cursed, blessed,
I love that I
transformed,
love that
maybe.
there's a box of becoming a hag.
Yes. So this is you have been changed. Um, Typically, you don't have to be, but it's sort of the predominant assumption. Um, Turned somehow by a hag. All right. So the fey sort of witchy type creature. Um,
Mhm.
and then the last one is the reborn.
Irreversibly transform
Irreversibly,
a
yes.
hexblood.
Yeah, again, these are this is not like polymorph, and this is not like a curse that you break like vampirism or
And this
lycanthropy. This is a permanent shift in change. Which
yeah.
means, like, for example, if you decide like, well, my character was an elf before this happened, and then they turned into this other thing, you lose all of your previous features.
Mhm.
So you only get the
So
ones from the new lineage.
so I mean, just to in kind of more permanent terms is unlike how when Veth was turned into naught, she's able to, and that's been out for, long, long time now. But like that was a curse that they were able to break. These are just you straight up change and there is no
I
going
mean, in
back.
theory,
There
there might
is
be a story
no
reason or whatever, but like it's not mechanically like you're under the effect of a polymorph or something.
yeah,
Or,
yeah.
if you die and you're resurrected, you turn back into your previous self or something. Like,
Mhm.
this is a change that is intended to be like you give up all of your previous um, features from being an elf or a dwarf or a human or a dragonborn or something, and
Mhm.
you get these new ones. Now, you
Yeah.
can just ignore that and just pick this lineage from the get-go and just ignore the other, excuse me,
Yeah.
previous stuff. um so the last one is the reborn, which is basically Frankenstein's monster. um Now, some interesting points about these all have dual creature types, so
Oh,
they're all
okay. That's
humanoid
what that
and
is.
something. So Dampier are humanoid and undead, Hexblood are humanoid and fey, Reborn are either humanoid and construct or humanoid and undead. Now, what this means is you are susceptible to any effects that affect either of your creature types. So this is both good and bad. So this means that Dampier and
Oh.
Reborn can be cured with Cure Wounds. It also means they can be detected by Divine Sense. Uh,
Mhm.
um, Hexbloods could be banished against
Yep.
anything that targets Fey.
Yep.
Or protection from evil. Actually,
Yep.
all of them can be targeted by protection from evil if you're an undead for reborn. Um,
Yep.
this does not mean so, uh, and it only functions positively, right? So if it's like with the I threw out the example of cure spells, right? So constructs and undead
Mhm.
can't be targeted by cure spells. Humanoids can, so you go with humanoid. If something
Okay.
says um I don't know, like if undead have advantage on saving throws against this effect, you would get
Yeah.
advantage on saving throws against that effect. Um,
Okay.
that kind of a thing. It works
Okay.
to your benefit, but there are also times when it will work against you as well.
but it would work against you if, say, you are let's just keep going with the reborn undead, and it's something that does radiant damage. You're gonna get that extra radiant damage
Yes.
for being
Yeah.
undead.
So if it's a case of the other option is neutral, you pick the option that it does something.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, uh, I mean, basically they put that in there so that you could be healed by cure spells, or you could be affected by charm person because it can
Oh,
target
yeah.
humanoids,
Mhm.
right? So if it was something where it said it cannot target humanoids but can target undead, uh, you could be targeted by it
Okay. Yeah.
if you have a secondary type as undead. Yeah,
Mhm.
little. It's something they haven't done before in fifth edition, um, so it requires just a little bit of extra explaining.
I
Other
think this
interesting
is
things.
something in
All of these lineages have +2 and +1 to any ability scores of your choice. They do not list language. They do not list age. They do not list cultural features. Um, it's only purely physical or
yeah.
innate magical features. Um, so this also brings up the sidebar that they have. Going
Yes.
forward, in all D&D published material, any new, we'll say, lineages, or if they
Yep.
still continue to use the term races, will follow this design structure. So again, it's they put it in a playtest article. Will they follow through with it? Well, they said they were going to, so now's the time to hold them to it.
I was gonna say, and now we can hold them to it because it is something that has been
But they put it
published.
out there,
So even if
right?
it's just Unearthed Arcana, like UA stuff is still out
So
there.
here's the thing: is now you have all these people up in arms on Twitter about how what was an optional rule in Tasha's is now going to be a quote unquote mandatory thing, and how dare wizards? Uh, and why don't you just do both? Like publish stuff and publish the cultural things and let people decide. That's missing the point. That's
Yeah.
missing the point of why this is being done. It is being done in part to respond to criticisms of bioessentialism in D&D, which is a
Hmm.
thing, right? Um, as well as stereotyping, which sometimes isn't necessarily negative, but
Hmm.
from a storytelling standpoint is boring.
I think
Like
that's something. I mean, this is something that you've kind of worked on yourself a little bit, Sean, with Jamora,
it has
and
gone through
thinking
several
about.
iterations of sort of, and this is taking inspiration from I want to say it's Arcanus Press's Ancestry and Culture supplement that's available on DM's Guild, where it's
Yeah.
separating essentially your biological traits, right? That generally speaking, um, if you're doing sort of sci-fi outlandish type stuff, people are okay with, um, and cultural traits.
Yeah.
So the idea that, like, if you're a member of a particular, and we'll use the term
Community.
lineage,
Okay.
you are not automatically ascribed a specific culture associated with that, because you
Yes.
might live in a different culture. That's the point.
You might not have grown up in an elven culture, you might have grown up in a human culture.
Correct.
And because of that, you have learned different things. It's like, you know, being.
Well, it's also, it addresses the question. It addresses the point of quote unquote elven culture, because the problem
Yeah.
is, it's a little history lesson. It was when D&D was formed. It was largely took influences from Tolkien and sort of misconstrued knowledge about medieval history and mythology.
Mhm.
Um, I say that because Gygax and Artisan were kind of not great at getting things right on that front. Um,
Yeah, early D&D
yeah.
was
Oh, it's a mess. It
it
is
was
a
yeah.
mess. And yeah, I'm totally willing to go
Yeah.
on the record to say that. So Um, basically, like in Tolkien, I mean, you kind
Yep.
of have two different cultures of elves.
Yep.
You have high elves and wood elves.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, overall, it's but or better example would be dwarves. Dwarves are considered to be like a one giant monoculture, and like every dwarf has the same culture, kind of a thing. And it's like, I mean, it's fantasy. You can do that, but also that was 100 years ago. Perhaps our literature and storytelling has advanced since then. That we
Wait,
can
was that
think.
really 100 years ago?
So Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings as a response to his service in World War I.
Oh, it was The Hobbit that he did as a story for his son, right?
So Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you can
Okay, I
Google
mean it was
quicker than I
published in
can.
54, but you know. So it was published in
Still, in
54,
50 still, think about what has changed since
but The Hobbit was
in
written in 37.
70 years. Yeah,
So, all right. So I stand by my case. So let's use The Hobbit as an example then. Right? But
yeah.
it's sure. And I mean, and here's the thing. Star Trek is also kind of guilty of this too. Even more so because it's an entire planet that has one culture. Uh is
Yeah.
often the case. Like you watch DS9 and like Bajoran culture. It's like, what does that even mean? Like it's an entire planet
Yeah.
that all has the same culture? Like, are you kidding me? Like Earth, you
Yeah.
can't even get the same culture in Berkshire County. And like the idea is
You
that
can't
suddenly if
even
you
get
move in,
the same culture in Pittsfield.
yeah, well there we go.
Like,
In
let's be
in
honest here.
seven
In a
square
town of
miles.
40,000 people or in a city of
Yeah,
40,000 people, you have multiple cultures
yeah,
throughout the city.
yeah. Um, and so
Like,
it
granted, they're much
that might
closer
just
together,
again
but,
might be the limitations of writing for 20-minute episodes. But
yeah.
the thing is, it is it's the people that are screaming about verisimilitude, right? Of
A what?
So verisimilitude is like believability, like your ability to get wrapped up into a setting and suspend
Okay.
your disbelief and everything
Okay.
and make it real, right?
Mhm.
Uh the people that are shouting about how using these new rules you could give gnomes +2 strength, uh, and that breaks the game for them, also think that every gnome in the world ascribes to the same culture.
I I'm just throwing this out here because I've recently rewatched the extended edition of The Hobbit. Um, th they literally got split up. Like, the dwarves of if we're basing this off of, let's say, Tolkien's everything, like, the the population of many dwarves got split up into different cultures. And so, like, I just I'm glad that Wizards is doing this
Yeah.
because
Now, granted, we'll see. Again, like we'll see when
yeah,
the next book comes out where they actually have this stuff.
yeah.
I would love to see like so I've been using the term folk,
Mhm.
which I like as a general term, as a game mechanics term. It just feels a little too unwieldy, just because of like
Yeah.
how it sounds. Lineage, great. I hope they run with it, and I
Yeah.
hope every book now uses lineage instead. And here's the other thing, Wizards. I'm gonna give you this one for free. I say that because, technically I'm getting it from the Ancestry and Culture Guide, which is on DM's Guild, so you can pilfer from that anyway, because those are the rules for DM's Guild. Um, you can just tack on culture as an extra thing. You already give people extra mechanics in Theros, so you've set the precedent. you can just have like an extra background. Just give them uh like language and a couple tools, maybe a skill, and like here's a thought, an interesting RP feature. Because the ones in backgrounds often are not very interesting. Make them interesting and do something weird. Make
So,
it weird.
I'm gonna make this weird. Um,
Oh boy. All right.
when you say the interesting traits, you mean like flaws, bonds, those
No, no, no.
things?
I mean, so your background, like
Yeah.
May's background is urchin. The
Okay.
background is like it takes you half the time to get through a city.
Yes.
That feature.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Overall, those features are boring.
Yeah.
It is often
Yeah.
uh like this the scholar or the sages is like, if you don't know the answer to a question, you know where to you know which library you could find the answer to the question to or whatever. And it's like, or
That's
I mean,
that's
it's often
that's
like
that
you
makes for
can
that
you
makes
can
for
go to a
less
specific
RP.
place and get lodging. And it's like, come on. Like how many times do we
Yeah.
have to go through permutations of it? The most interesting ones are like the night where it's you get three dudes. You get three dudes who handle your gear and carry your gear for you. Yeah, you get porters and squires.
Oh
They are
goodness.
non-combatants, but they will run errands for you. Like one can be a major domo and like they announce you at court and stuff like that. That's interesting.
I think things that add to RP. Like
Um I
I
want to
am
say
a
the
big
the
fan of
guild
things that add to role
the
play.
guild artisan one is interesting. You have to pay guild fees, but like they'll represent you in court. And like and also ones that they make you interact, right? If it's just like you can go to a garrison and they will provide lodging to you, or you can go to a temple and they will provide lodging to you and your companions, or you know, you can go to the house of a poor person and like they'll recognize you as one of their fellow poor people and they'll let you stay at their house or whatever. Boring.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
something
It
weird.
is.
Do something wild. Do something interesting. You know? Here's an example.
You
I'm going to give you all this one for free. All right? This is going to be a cultural trait for Twill folk from Legends
mhm.
or Tales of Jamora, right? So I want to do something where it's like uh you you have some kind of better ability to find your way around when it's foggy and misty out.
Yeah.
And then you don't take a penalty for dim light because the
Yeah.
sun don't shine on Twill or on Twilling,
Ain't no
right?
sunshine when
Um,
she's I don't know.
or so like here's another example. Like so of a feature that like really isn't like is really cultural and not biological is the cunning
Mhm.
artisan feature on lizard folk.
Yeah.
Like that one kind of rankles me because it's a cool feature, but like that's something that number one should have like could have just been baked into the ranger class instead of getting thrown onto a lineage,
Yes.
right? So now suddenly all lizard folk are MacGyvers, and it's like
Yeah, I've never really felt like that was like I've always had it just like that's how it is, but like I've always been like that doesn't again trying to equate I know trying to equate a D&D world in any way shape or form to real world is very different, but it's like it's the every elf has what short bow and longbow stuff.
yes, so
And
that's
it's
an
like
example of stuff that like gets taken out.
yeah, and so I'm like what if I grew up, somewhere where that wasn't a thing, say where I grew up they'd had firearms. like
Yeah.
I wouldn't my character wouldn't have any reasoning to know these things and it's not the things that they've always offered for like proficiencies and things like that are not things that can be like, oh, well, you have this trait, this feature from your lineage, which makes this an innate talent for you.
Yeah.
Um, and
Now,
it's not something that can be explained by lineage at
yeah.
all.
Now there are some things like innate magic, right? This kind of gets
Yeah.
into a little bit of a tricky one. Because sometimes it means like what is innate magic? And usually it's applied to like very magical, like fairies and
Mhm.
demons and stuff like that. So you
Mhm.
get, tieflings and Asimar
Yeah.
and things like that, where they are it's your lineage comes with these mystical abilities,
Yeah.
right? Um,
But I think, and I'm just throwing this out here as a general idea, like something like that could either be it's like in the Harry Potter universe. If you with the magical ability specific. Like if you have say, a wizard in your family, like maybe not everybody in that family is going to be a wizard or have magical abilities, but say, there's the wonderful canon out there or head canon from fan theories of like Dudley's kid being a wizard. And it's like having to realize at a young age that he started showing magical ability. And it's like, that's kind of how I'm
it's a
imagining that
little
kind of
different.
stuff.
That's a little
Okay.
different. So right off the bat is
Mhm.
uh
'Cause that
so
would
all
make
the
it
quote unquote
linked
wizards
to
and witches in Harry
lineage.
Potter are just sorcerers. Um
But
uh where it's you have the potential to pursue magic and it has to be nurtured and developed, right?
mhm.
Um this is more you know, um like pixies. I would assume that
Okay.
like pixies are magical beings, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of creature to keep going with the Harry Potter motif, but I'm not super big. Or let's say
Yeah.
like a boggart, right?
Yeah.
Whole point of them are they're shapeshifters. Like technically, like,
Mhm.
that's kind of a form of magic, right?
Yeah.
And like, but that is essential to what is a boggart, right?
Mhm.
Um, sort of like I mean, so these are things like it's no different than Dragonborn. They breathe energy weapons, right? They have dragon
Mhm.
breath. I mean, that's technically we'll call it
A
magical.
magical, yeah.
It's not spells, but it's magical. Um, the same way that like high elves uh have a cantrip, right?
Yeah.
That is because they're a little more fey-like than other elves. They
Mhm.
have that ability.
Yeah.
Or um how it's presented, I will say, in 5th edition is that wood elves um, have a subtle magical power to conceal themselves in nature, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's why it's different
I'm
than
j I'm just thinking of the feat Wood Elf magic and
yeah.
how that can be
Well, so
brought
here's the thing:
about.
feats are different.
Oh,
They are
absolutely,
optional.
absolutely. I just my head just kinda went to that and I'm like,
So this is just it's essentially determining like what sort of magic counts as a biological trait, quote unquote.
yeah.
Um, and it might even be something as simple as renaming some things.
Mhm.
Um, so um, particularly for orcs and half orcs. Uh,
Mm.
hmm. But so yeah, so basically, it's really that sidebar is kind of the most exciting thing about that Unearthed Arcana. Um,
Yeah,
as the other stuff, it's like
I think it's great.
Dampier are that you get a climb speed, and at 3rd level you spider climb. You got a bite, you can fangly bite and drain blood. Hex bloods, they get Hex and Bane, I think. They get bonus spells that are like Hex oriented. And
Yeah.
then kind of their coolest ability is they can pull out like a tooth or a fingernail or something and use it as like a messaging token, right? So you give it to somebody and you can just talk to them. Um, or if you enter a trance, you can like, see as if they were a familiar. Uh, and then after the trance
Wait, the
ends,
person
like,
holding, like, your
yeah,
nail or whatever?
yeah, like you see what they see and you hear what they hear and everything. Um, after you exit that trance, like it crumbles, and then you have to finish a long rest before you can use it again. At which point, the thing that you pulled off or pulled out grows back.
Okay.
So you're always just like yanking out a tooth and like, here's my tooth. I will now look through your eyes, mortal. Um, Reborn
That's just kinda
Reborn
creepy.
basically just get all of like the basic Warforged stuff, like of being a quote unquote construct. It's like
Yeah.
the resistance to disease, poison, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't breathe, you don't drink. You have advantage on death saves. And then Warforged don't get that, but it's been in other iterations of Warforged. Um,
Yeah.
but also, uh, you have like a flashbacks ability because the assumption is you had a past life or past lives, or you're made up of parts of other people, and so there's like a latent memory in there, and you can use that to gain bonuses on various checks. It's kind of distilling that rogue subclass into a lineage,
Yeah.
which is kind of what it should have been in the first place, but whatever. And
It's
with all of these,
interesting
they
to
have
me.
different prompts for it. So, like, no two reborn. In theory, like you could have two reborn that are wildly different. Like, it is equally Frankenstein's monster, RoboCop, Molly Mock, and uh, General Grievous. Those
Yeah,
all
it's
fit.
funny because like, I saw that one, and then I'm thinking about the revived roguish archetype
Yeah.
that came out, and it's like, there's a lot of things that are, kinda similar to that. I don't get advantage on the death saving throws, but, like,
That's
there's
because so in D&D Beyond, I have the cultural feats, and you get it
Mhm.
from that.
Yeah.
But I think you're also supposed to get it from the subclass too, because that's a
I
thing. Yeah. So anyway,
but,
yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I'm seeing, like, something coming back up again, which makes me think that it's just like they've been reworking these types of things.
yeah.
Um, I still love the revived as a roguish archetype, and I will never get rid of May because of that. I will never delete her. I will remake her before I delete her.
So,
But
all right. Um, I think that kind of wraps everything up that we have to talk
I
about
think that
Unearthed
does, and
Arcana.
I think that we should get onto Questlog.
Yes. And this will be pretty quick. So
hmm
I'm gonna put you on a timer, Courtney. You have a limited amount of time to talk about your Stardew Valley stuff.
I can catch everybody up on my star doing very quickly.
Well, it's just the goals, right?
Yes.
Just the goals.
Yes.
Okay, Courtney,
Yes.
in one
So,
sentence or less for each one, tell us how you did and what your upcoming goals are.
okay. Last week I still had my goal of get ostriches. I have not been able to complete that yet.
Okay.
Still working towards it. My goals for this week, which actually just like I was fiddling with them earlier today, and one of them was already completed, was get dinosaurs and get cooking are my other two goals that I have decided. Um, and I found a dinosaur egg earlier this morning, which has gone straight into the incubator. Um, and I'm going to be trying and cooking everything in Stardew Valley to get that achievement. I've never done that before. Thank you to the Stardew wiki.
Yep.
So,
Which now is under the purview of Concerned Ape.
oh, the whole wiki is.
Yeah, the community wiki. There's a big banner up at the top. They
Oh,
transferred ownership over to Concerned Ape.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. I think it
Yeah,
was just because it
I'm on that
was.
wiki a lot.
Yeah. Um. So yeah,
Okay. All right.
you
What
good?
about you, Sean?
All right.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I will
Colored
step away.
comics that happened. Went above and beyond the goal, as I've been doing every week. Item icons, again, above and beyond. So I've managed. I did 2 of them. Gonna keep with those. Turtle spirit form. Nope. It takes 3 days to from planting that seed to being able to open it and find out what I got.
Oh.
And I have only 2 spots that I can do that in. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you know, I might be able to do it like 4 times a week. And nothing so far. It is a rare drop. So, nothing yet. And I don't think I can open more for like another 2 days. So yeah. That's it.
Keep working on it.
Keep working. All right. So a little bit of 8-Bit Adventures sort of stream stuff, I guess. Housekeeping. That's the word I'm looking for.
Housekeeping.
A little
That's
bit
the
of
word we're
housekeeping.
looking for.
So
Yes.
number 1,
Housekeeping?
starting with Nova Drift Part 1 is any stream VODs that go to YouTube will now also be posted on 8bitadventures.com, like how they were back in ye olden days. So now that it's just I have an actual structure and playlist set up and everything, VODs will be posted there as well. Because as you know, 8-Bit Adventures plays, I'm not doing highlights of them so that they won't get saved like the podcast and Tales of Jamora will on Twitch. So, like once the 2 weeks are up, like they go away, but they'll live on YouTube forever. We
Yeah.
assume. So there's that. As a reminder, Twitch subscribers and patrons, you get to vote from
Yes.
Sunday to Wednesday on what games get played this week. So, Courtney and Heather voted for Nova Drift and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
Because I thought that looked really fun.
So, we're going to play. So, one of the other things is to think about, and I would love people's input. You can reach me on social media or at Sean at 8-bitadventures.com, is doing one game for a full stream or doing what I've been doing and kind of splitting it up halfway, like taking a break in the middle and playing one game for the first half for like an hour, playing a second game for the second half for an hour. It makes exporting stuff a little weirder and a little more involved, but it's not a huge deal. So there's that. So that might determine whether it's Nova Drift and Hyrule Warriors both days, or if it's one day and one the next day, is all. Another consideration is potentially either switching or adding stream nights. Thinking about doing something on Mondays, since there's not a whole lot of people streaming, at least at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays. So potentially adding that. It's, again, I don't want to overexpand and add too much and then overextend myself and have to scale back. But that's just something to think about. If Fridays and Saturdays seem to not be good days for you to tune in, for game streams, and other days would, again, please reach out, let me know. 8-Bit Adventures podcast isn't going anywhere. We're kind of stuck in
Mm.
this time slot. Um,
Yes, yes, we are.
we are for the time being
I
anyway.
I sh- I shaped my entire work schedule
She did.
around this
She did.
podcast. I
Also,
genuinely
and
did. My boss
one
said,
thing to
"Pick
note
your
is
schedule," and I said, "I need Wednesday nights off."
when Tales of Jamora comes back, it will continue to be on Friday nights.
Mhm,
So there is that. So again, just some housekeeping stuff to keep in mind.
mhm.
Um, but now let's wrap up the show, shall we?
Yeah.
So if you want to find more stuff from 8-Bit Adventures, you can check out 8-bitadventures.com. Over there, you can find comics, artwork, podcast streams, and more. If you want to help support that content, you can do so two ways. One, you can become a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Patrons get behind the scenes access and playtest content from Tales of
Mhm.
Jamora,
Yep.
um, discounts on merch, being able to vote on which games get played each week, as well as early
Yep.
access to the comics, as well as exclusive access to Speedy and Monty comics.
Yeah.
Or you can subscribe right here on Twitch. Doing so also gives you access to voting on games each week and access
Mhm.
to our emotes.
Yeah.
Um, big shout out and thank you to all of the subscribers on Twitch, patrons on Patreon, and our listeners at home. Thank you for listening and
Yeah.
thank you for downloading. We appreciate it.
We do.
Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. Please go check out his work at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And we're out. So, as
Mhm.
always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming and enjoy your pie cake.
Bye, everybody.